Congratulations, little brother. I only came to return something that always belonged to you.
20 years earlier, a promise between two brothers would begin a story of love, sacrifice, betrayal, and redemption that no one could have imagined. Marcus Johnson was only 30 years old, but life had already aged him beyond his years. His younger brother Kevin had just turned 18. They lived on the south side of Chicago in a small neighborhood where every dollar mattered. Their father had died years earlier after a long illness. Their mother worked herself to exhaustion trying to raise two boys alone. She cleaned offices during the day, worked in a restaurant at night. Still, it was never enough. Marcus became more than a brother. He became Kevin's protector, his father, his best friend. Whenever Kevin got into trouble, Marcus defended him. Whenever Kevin was hungry, Marcus gave him his own food. Whenever Kevin needed encouragement, Marcus reminded him that one day life would get better. Their mother had only one dream. She wanted Kevin to become the first college graduate in the family. She believed Kevin had a gift that could change their future forever. Marcus believed it too. Then tragedy struck. One cold winter evening, their mother suffered a fatal stroke. Before taking her last breath, she grabbed Marcus's hand. With tears in her eyes, she whispered, "Promise me you'll take care of your brother." Marcus couldn't even speak. He simply nodded. That promise became the purpose of his life. After the funeral, reality hit hard. There was no money, no savings, no relatives willing to help. Bills piled higher every week. Kevin was preparing for college. Marcus had just been accepted into an engineering program. He had dreamed about becoming an engineer since he was a little boy. But someone had to make a choice. Marcus quietly tore up his own college acceptance letter. Without telling Kevin, he gave up his dream. The next morning, he started working construction. During the evenings, he drove taxis. At night, he unloaded trucks inside freezing warehouses. Some days he worked 3 jobs. Some nights he slept only 4 hours. Every paycheck went toward Kevin's tuition. Every overtime shift meant another textbook. Every blister on his hands meant another semester paid. Kevin never had to worry. Marcus made sure of that. Whenever Kevin apologized, Marcus only smiled. "You just focus on graduating. I'll handle everything else." Kevin believed his brother was simply doing what family does. He never realized the true price Marcus was paying. Years passed. Kevin excelled in school. Professors praised him. Friends admired him. Scholarships covered part of his expenses. Marcus covered everything else. When tuition increased, Marcus sold his old pickup truck. When Kevin needed a laptop, Marcus emptied his savings. When graduation approached, one final bill threatened to end everything. Marcus had nothing left. Only one thing still belonged to him: their childhood home. The last memory of their parents. The only inheritance they had. Marcus sold it without hesitation. He never told Kevin. He watched strangers move into the house where they had grown up, then quietly walked away, alone. Kevin graduated with honors. The entire auditorium stood and applauded. Everyone celebrated Kevin's success. Nobody knew the man sitting in the back row wearing work boots had sacrificed everything to make that moment possible. After the ceremony, Kevin hugged Marcus tightly. With tears in his eyes, he said, "I'll make you proud. I promise you'll never have to struggle again." Marcus smiled. Those words filled his heart with hope. He truly believed their hard days were finally over. Kevin's graduation became the talk of the neighborhood. Friends celebrated him. Professors praised him. Local newspapers called him a young man with limitless potential. Marcus stood quietly in the background. He didn't need applause. Seeing his little brother succeed was enough. For the first time in years, Marcus allowed himself to dream again. Maybe now he could finally go back to school. Maybe he could build a better life for himself. Maybe all those years of sacrifice had finally come to an end. Kevin hugged him before leaving for New York. "Big brother, just give me a little time. I'm going to make us both proud." Marcus smiled. "I already am." As Kevin boarded the plane, Marcus waved until it disappeared into the clouds. He had no idea that would be the beginning of the greatest heartbreak of his life. New York changed Kevin. The city moved faster. People dressed differently. Money spoke louder than character. Within months, Kevin landed a job at one of the country's fastest-growing technology companies. He worked hard. His intelligence impressed everyone. Promotions came quickly. Then, opportunity knocked. A wealthy investor noticed Kevin's talent and offered to fund his business idea. Kevin accepted without hesitation. His startup exploded almost overnight. New clients arrived every week. Television stations requested interviews. Business magazines featured him on their covers. Social media crowned him the self-made millionaire. Marcus watched every interview. Every success made him smile. Whenever reporters asked Kevin how he became successful, Marcus waited patiently. Surely his little brother would mention the sacrifices. Surely he would tell the world about the man who gave up everything. But Kevin simply smiled at the cameras. I built everything from the ground up. I never depended on anyone. I made my own opportunities. Marcus stared silently at the television. The words hurt, but he convinced himself Kevin was simply nervous. He didn't mean it. He'll remember next time. He turned the television off and went back to work. Months became years. Kevin's fortune multiplied. A small company became a national corporation. Million-dollar deals turned into $100 million contracts. Soon, Kevin was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He bought a mansion overlooking the ocean. A fleet of luxury cars filled his garage. Private jets became his preferred way to travel. Marcus still lived in the same modest apartment. His truck had over 300,000 miles on it. His work boots were falling apart. Yet every Sunday, Marcus called Kevin. Sometimes Kevin answered. Most times, he didn't. When he finally did, the conversations became shorter. "I'm in a meeting." "I'll call you back." "I'm traveling." "I'm busy." The promised call never came. Still, Marcus defended him whenever people complained. "He's working hard. He has responsibilities. He hasn't forgotten me." At least, that's what Marcus wanted to believe. One afternoon, everything seemed to change. Marcus met a woman named Alicia Brooks. She worked as a children's librarian. She loved books. She volunteered at food banks on weekends. She believed kindness was the greatest form of wealth. Their first conversation lasted almost 3 hours. Their second lasted even longer. For the first time since their mother's death, Marcus laughed without forcing himself. Alicia didn't care that Marcus wasn't rich. She admired his humility. She respected his work ethic. Most importantly, she loved the way he treated people. Months later, Marcus bought a simple engagement ring. It wasn't expensive, but every dollar had been earned honestly. He planned to propose during a quiet picnic at the same park where they had shared their first date. He wanted to spend the rest of his life with Alicia. There was only one person whose blessing he wanted before asking the biggest question of his life. His little brother, Marcus, called Kevin. To his surprise, Kevin answered immediately. "I'm flying to Chicago tomorrow." "It'll be good to see you, big brother." Marcus smiled. For the first time in years, hope returned. He believed the distance between them was finally coming to an end. He had no idea that Kevin's visit would become the beginning of the ultimate betrayal. Marcus could hardly sleep that night. His little brother was finally coming home. He cleaned his apartment from top to bottom. He cooked every meal Kevin had loved as a child. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, sweet potato pie. For a few hours, it felt like their mother was still watching over them. The next afternoon, a convoy of black luxury SUVs pulled into the apartment complex.
Look at that massive convoy.
Neighbors
pulling
rushed
in.
outside.
Everyone is coming
Children
outside.
pointed excitedly.
Who do you think is inside
Kevin
that car?
stepped out wearing a custom-tailored suit and designer sunglasses. Two
That's
bodyguards
Kevin
followed
Johnson.
behind him.
The
People whispered,
Billionaire.
"That's Kevin Johnson, the billionaire." Marcus ignored all the attention. He walked over and wrapped his brother in a hug. Kevin hesitated for a moment, then hugged him back. "It's good to see you, big brother." Marcus smiled. "I've missed you." For the first few hours, everything felt normal again. They laughed about old memories, talked about their parents, shared stories from childhood. Marcus began believing the bond between them had survived the years. Then he said something that made Kevin curious. "There's someone I want you to meet." Kevin smiled politely. "Oh?" Marcus nodded. "The best thing that's ever happened to me." That evening, Marcus took Kevin to a small community charity event. Children played basketball. Families laughed together. Volunteers served meals. Near the playground, Alicia handed books to children. She looked up and smiled the moment she saw Marcus. She walked over and kissed him gently on the cheek. Kevin stared. For a brief second, time seemed to stop. Alicia extended her hand. "You must be Kevin. I've heard so much about you." Kevin smiled. "The pleasure is mine." But inside, something changed. He couldn't explain it. He had met beautiful women before, models, actresses, business executives. None of them had captured his attention the way Alicia did. It wasn't just her beauty, it was the kindness in her eyes, the way she treated everyone with respect, the way she looked at Marcus with genuine love. For the first time in years, Kevin wanted something that didn't belong to him. As they drove home, Kevin couldn't stop thinking about Alicia. He replayed every conversation, every smile, every laugh. He knew she loved Marcus. He knew Marcus planned to marry her. He also knew Marcus trusted him completely. Instead of pushing the thought away, Kevin allowed it to grow. Days later, he called Marcus. "I'd like to spend more time getting to know Alicia. If she's going to be my sister-in-law, we should become friends." Marcus smiled. "I'd like that." He never questioned his brother's intentions. Why would he? Marcus had spent his entire life trusting Kevin. Over the following weeks, Kevin became a regular part of their lives. He invited both of them to expensive restaurants, bought tickets to concerts, took them on weekend trips. Marcus appreciated every moment. He believed his family was finally whole again. But little by little, Kevin began creating opportunities to be alone with Alicia. Sometimes Marcus would receive a phone call from work and have to leave early. Kevin would offer to drive Alicia home. Other times, Kevin would invite Alicia to charity events, claiming Marcus was too busy working. At first, everything seemed innocent. Then the gifts started arriving. A designer handbag, a luxury watch, a new laptop for her community projects. Alicia refused every expensive gift. "I can't accept these." Kevin smiled. "They're just tokens of appreciation." She still said no. Kevin realized money alone wouldn't win her heart. So he tried something far more dangerous: lies. One afternoon, Kevin visited Alicia while Marcus was working. He looked unusually serious. "I need to tell you something." Alicia frowned. "What is it?" Kevin lowered his head. "My brother would never tell you this, but he's drowning in debt." Alicia's face filled with concern. "What?" "He borrowed money from dangerous people years ago. He's hiding it because he doesn't want to lose you." Alicia immediately defended Marcus. "Marcus has never lied to me." Kevin sighed. "I hope you're right, but there are things about his past you don't know." Before leaving, he planted one final seed. Just be careful. That night, Alicia looked at Marcus differently. Not with anger, not with fear, but with questions. Questions Marcus didn't understand. Questions someone else had carefully placed in her heart. Neither Marcus nor Alicia realized it. But Kevin had just taken the first step toward destroying the only happiness his brother had left. A few days later, Marcus noticed something was different. Alicia smiled less. She seemed distracted. Sometimes she stared into space during dinner. Other times she asked strange questions. "Marcus, have you ever hidden anything from me?" Marcus looked confused. "What do you mean?" She forced a smile. "Nothing. I was just thinking." Marcus reached across the table and held her hand. "I've never lied to you. If I ever have a problem, you'll be the first person to know." Alicia nodded. She wanted to believe him, but Kevin's words kept echoing in her mind. Kevin wasn't finished. He knew one lie wasn't enough. He needed proof, or at least something that looked like proof. Using his connections, he had fake financial documents created. The papers showed Marcus owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid loans. There were fake collection notices, fake legal warnings, even fake emails threatening lawsuits. Everything looked authentic. Kevin slipped the documents into an envelope, then anonymously mailed them to Alicia. When she opened the package, her hands began shaking. She immediately called Marcus. "We need to talk." Marcus sensed the worry in her voice. "I'll come over right now." When he arrived, the documents were spread across the kitchen table. "What are these?" Marcus picked them up. His eyes widened. "I've never seen these before." Alicia searched his face. "Tell me the truth." Marcus shook his head. "I swear on my mother's grave, these aren't mine." For the first time since they met, Alicia didn't know who to believe. Meanwhile, Kevin quietly smiled. His plan was working. He continued calling Alicia, Not to pressure her, but to comfort her. I know this is hard. I just don't want to see you get hurt. He became the shoulder she leaned on, the person who always seemed available, the person who always had the right words. Without realizing it, Alicia slowly began trusting Kevin more than Marcus, exactly as Kevin intended. One evening, Marcus finally bought the courage to propose. He reserved a small table overlooking Lake Michigan. It wasn't expensive, just peaceful. He placed the ring inside his jacket pocket. As Alicia arrived, Marcus noticed she looked nervous. Before he could speak, she spoke first. "I think we need some time apart." Marcus froze. "What? I don't know what's true anymore. I need space." Marcus felt his heart shatter. "Alicia, I love you. I've done nothing wrong." Tears rolled down her face. "I just can't do this right now." She stood up, turned around, and walked away. Marcus remained seated. The ring was still in his pocket. He never got the chance to ask the question he had dreamed about for months. Weeks passed. Marcus called Alicia countless times. No answer. He sent letters. No reply. Flowers were returned unopened. It was as if she had disappeared. Marcus couldn't understand it. Every night, he replayed every conversation in his mind, wondering where everything had gone wrong. Then, one Saturday morning, a thick envelope arrived in his mailbox. He smiled. Maybe it was finally a letter from Alicia. Instead, it was an elegant invitation, gold lettering, luxury paper. Marcus slowly opened it. His smile faded. His hands began trembling. The groom, Kevin Johnson. The bride, Alicia Brooks. Marcus read the invitation again. And again. His mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. No, this has to be a mistake. He grabbed his phone and called Kevin. Straight to voicemail. He called Alicia. Her number had been disconnected. Marcus sank into his chair. The invitation slipped from his fingers. For the first time since losing his mother, he cried uncontrollably. Not because he had lost the woman he loved, but because the little brother he had raised, the little brother he had sacrificed everything for, had become the man who broke his heart. Little did Marcus know, the wedding was only the beginning. Kevin was about to take the very last thing Marcus had left. Marcus locked himself inside his apartment for 3 days. He didn't answer phone calls. He didn't go to work. He didn't eat. The wedding invitation remained on the coffee table. Every time he looked at it, it felt like another knife through his heart. He couldn't understand it. How could the little boy he had carried on his shoulders become the man who stole the love of his life? On the morning of the wedding, Marcus made a decision. He wasn't going to stop it. He wasn't going to make a scene. He only wanted one thing, the truth. The church was overflowing with guests, business executives, politicians, celebrities. Reporters waited outside, hoping to photograph one of America's youngest black billionaires. Inside, Kevin stood proudly at the altar. Alicia looked beautiful in her wedding dress. But behind her smile, something felt wrong. She couldn't explain it. Her heart wasn't at peace. Just before the ceremony began, the church doors opened. Marcus quietly walked in. Every head turned. Kevin's smile disappeared. He hadn't invited his brother. Marcus slowly walked toward the front. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. He simply looked at Kevin. "I only came to ask you one question." The church became silent. Kevin forced a smile. "What is it?" Marcus looked him in the eyes. "Why? After everything, why?" Kevin looked away. For several seconds he couldn't answer. Then his face hardened. "Because I earned this life. I refused to stay poor. I took opportunities when they came." Marcus nodded slowly. "So, I was just another opportunity?" Kevin didn't respond. Marcus reached into his jacket. Everyone gasped. But instead of pulling out a weapon, he pulled out an old photograph. It showed 2 young boys standing beside their mother. Marcus handed it to Kevin. "I wanted you to remember who you used to be." Without another word, Marcus turned around and quietly walked out of the church. Not a single guest stopped him. Alicia watched him leave. For the first time, she noticed the pain in his eyes. It wasn't the look of a bitter man. It was the look of a man whose heart had been completely broken. The wedding went on. Guests danced. Champagne flowed. Music filled the ballroom. Everyone called it the wedding of the year. But Kevin couldn't enjoy it. The old photograph remained in his pocket. Every time he touched it, he remembered his mother's smile. He remembered Marcus carrying him home when he scraped his knees. He remembered Marcus working late into the night. He remembered promises he had made, promises he had broken. He pushed the memories away. Money was all that mattered now, or so he kept telling himself. Months passed. Kevin's company expanded faster than ever. His wealth doubled, then tripled. Magazine covers called him a visionary. Television hosts praised him as a self-made success. Marcus watched every interview from his tiny apartment. Each time Kevin claimed he built everything alone, Marcus quietly turned off the television. He never defended himself. He never exposed the truth. He simply kept working. Then one afternoon, Marcus received unexpected news. The trucking company where he had worked for nearly 15 years had been sold. Employees gathered in the warehouse. Everyone wondered who the new owner was. Luxury SUVs pulled into the parking lot. The doors opened. Kevin stepped out wearing an expensive suit. The workers applauded. They thought Marcus would finally be rewarded. After all, the owner was his younger brother. Kevin walked onto the stage. He thanked everyone for their years of service. Then he announced major changes. There will be restructuring. Some positions will be eliminated. Managers began handing out envelopes. Marcus opened his. His hands started shaking. His employment had been terminated, effective immediately. No severance, no explanation. Only a signature at the bottom. Kevin's signature. Marcus slowly walked toward his brother. The warehouse became silent. He held up the termination letter. Was this really necessary? Kevin looked at him without emotion. This is business. No hard feelings. Marcus stared at him for a long moment. Then he folded the letter, placed it inside his jacket, and quietly replied, "I hope your success is worth the price you paid for it." He turned and walked away. The workers watched in disbelief. Some lowered their heads in shame. Others couldn't believe a man could treat his own brother that way. Marcus walked out, carrying a small cardboard box. Inside were all the belongings from 15 years of honest work. A family photograph, an old coffee mug, a pair of worn work gloves. Everything he had left. As he reached the parking lot, dark clouds gathered overhead. Rain began to fall. Marcus looked up at the sky. For the first time in his life, he had nothing. No family, no job, no home to return to. But somewhere, far beyond what either brother could see, life was quietly preparing a turn that would change everything. Marcus stood in the rain for what felt like hours. Cars drove past. Nobody stopped. Nobody asked if he was okay. The cardboard box in his hands slowly became soaked. The family photograph curled at the edges. The old work gloves were drenched. Marcus looked at them and whispered, "I kept my promise, Mom, but I couldn't keep my brother." He turned around and began walking. He had nowhere to go. The landlord had been waiting. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I've waited 3 months. I can't wait any longer." Marcus nodded. "I understand." He packed everything he owned into one worn duffel bag, a few shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, his mother's Bible, the old photograph of the family, and the engagement ring he had never been able to give Alicia. Before leaving, he placed the apartment key on the kitchen counter. He looked around one last time. So this is goodbye. Then he closed the door forever. The days that followed were the hardest of Marcus's life. He searched everywhere for work, construction sites, warehouses, factories, delivery companies. Everywhere he went, the answer was the same. "We're not hiring. We'll call you. Leave your resume." The phone never rang. His savings disappeared. Soon, Marcus couldn't afford a motel room. He slept inside bus stations, sometimes on park benches, other nights inside a homeless shelter. He kept his duffel bag close. It was all he had left. One freezing evening, Marcus stood outside a small diner. The smell of fresh food filled the air. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. He checked his pocket. 38 cents. Not enough for a meal. He turned to walk away. Just then, an elderly waitress opened the door. "Sir, you look hungry." Marcus smiled politely. "I'm okay." She shook her head. "No, you're not." She disappeared inside. A few moments later, she returned with a warm plate of food. "I paid for it." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "I can't accept this." The woman smiled. "My son would have been your age. I lost him years ago. Let me help someone else's son. Marcus bowed his head. Thank you. He ate slowly. Every bite reminded him of his mother's cooking. When he finished, he washed his own plate before leaving. The waitress watched him with a smile. Most people would have just walked away, Marcus replied softly. My mother raised me better than that. Across the city, Kevin's life looked perfect. His company was now worth billions. He appeared on magazine covers. Television hosts praised him as a genius entrepreneur. At glamorous parties, people called him an inspiration. But behind the cameras, cracks were beginning to appear. Several executives quietly resigned. Trusted employees started leaving. A few investors questioned unusual financial decisions. Kevin ignored every warning. I built this company. I know what I'm doing. His arrogance grew with every success. Meanwhile, Alicia couldn't sleep. Night after night, she replayed the day Marcus came to the wedding. His words echoed in her mind. Why? Not once had Marcus shouted. Not once had he insulted her. Not once had he tried to stop the wedding. He had simply looked heartbroken. Something about that memory refused to leave her. One afternoon, she decided to visit Marcus's old apartment. Maybe she could finally get the answers she had been avoiding. The landlord opened the door. I'm looking for Marcus Johnson. The old man sighed. You're too late. He moved out months ago. Do you know where he went? The landlord slowly shook his head. He lost everything. I heard he was living on the streets. Alicia's heart dropped. What? He never complained. He just apologized for not being able to pay the rent. Then the landlord looked at her carefully. Young lady, if you're the reason that man cried, you lost one of the best men I've ever known. Alicia stood frozen. For the first time, she realized Kevin's story didn't match Marcus's life. And deep inside, a terrible question began to grow. What if Marcus had been telling the truth all along? Alicia couldn't stop thinking about what the landlord had said. You lost one of the best men I've ever known. Those words echoed in her mind for days. She drove home in complete silence. That night, she barely touched her dinner. Kevin noticed. Is everything okay? Alicia forced a smile. I'm just tired. Kevin nodded, but something in her eyes made him uneasy. For the first time, he wondered if his lies were beginning to fall apart. The next morning, Alicia drove to the small public library where she had first met Marcus. The librarian recognized her immediately. You haven't been here in a while. Alicia smiled weakly. I'm looking for Marcus. The librarian's face became sad. He used to volunteer here every Saturday. He'd read stories to children for hours. He even bought books with his own money whenever a child couldn't afford one. Alicia looked surprised. Marcus bought books? The librarian nodded. All the time. He never wanted anyone to know. He'd simply leave the books on my desk with a note. The librarian opened a drawer. I think I still have one. She handed Alicia a small folded note. In Marcus's handwriting it read, Every child deserves a chance to dream. Please don't tell them who paid for these books. Alicia's hands began to shake. That wasn't the man Kevin had described. She continued searching for answers. Marcus's old construction supervisor welcomed her into his office. When she mentioned Marcus's name, the older man's eyes lit up. Marcus? I'd hire him again today if I could. Alicia frowned. I heard he had serious financial problems. The supervisor laughed softly. Marcus? He was the most honest employee I ever had. He worked double shifts whenever someone else's family needed help. He even donated blood to one of our workers' little girl. He never expected anything in return. Alicia felt tears gathering in her eyes. Everything she was hearing painted a completely different picture. That evening, Alicia returned home determined to learn the truth. Kevin was in his home office. She quietly opened a drawer looking for old financial records. Instead, she found a locked black folder. Curiosity took over. She searched until she found the key hidden behind a framed photograph. Her heart raced as she unlocked the folder. Inside were dozens of documents, property records, bank statements, private emails. Then, one document caught her attention. It was the deed to Marcus's childhood home. She read it carefully. Seller, Marcus Johnson. Date, just 1 week before Kevin's final college tuition payment. She froze. Another document was attached. The sale proceeds had been transferred directly to Kevin's university. Alicia covered her mouth. No? She kept reading. There were receipts. Tuition invoices, wire transfers. Every payment came from Marcus. Her legs became weak. She sat on the floor. For years, Kevin had claimed he paid his own way through college. The documents proved otherwise. Marcus had sacrificed everything, even the home their parents left behind. Alicia burst into tears. She finally understood. Marcus hadn't lost her because he wasn't good enough. He had lost her because someone he trusted most had stolen everything from him. At that exact moment, Kevin walked into the office. He stopped in the doorway. The black folder lay open. The documents were scattered across the floor. Alicia slowly looked up. Tears streamed down her face. Her voice trembled. "Tell me, please tell me these papers are fake." Kevin didn't answer. His silence said everything. Alicia stood. "You told me Marcus lied. You told me he was drowning in debt. You told me he was hiding things from me." She held up the property deed. "He sold his parents' house, so you could finish college." Kevin lowered his head. "Alicia, I can explain." She stepped back. "No, you can confess." Kevin closed his eyes. For years, he had rehearsed excuses in his mind, but now, none of them sounded convincing. Finally, he whispered the words he had been avoiding for years. "I was jealous." Alicia stared at him in disbelief. "Jealous? He had something money couldn't buy. He had your love. I wanted everything he had." The room fell silent. Alicia slowly removed her wedding ring. She placed it on the desk between them. "I married a man I thought was successful, but success built on betrayal is failure wearing an expensive suit." She turned toward the door. Kevin's voice cracked. "Where are you going?" Without looking back, she answered quietly, "I'm going to find the man who deserved my trust." Kevin stood alone in the silent office. For the first time in his life, his billions couldn't buy back what he had just lost. But he had no idea. His business empire was about to collapse next. Alicia drove through the city for hours. She visited every place Marcus used to go. The library, the construction company, the community center, the small diner where they shared their first date. Everywhere she asked the same question. "Have you seen Marcus Johnson?" Most people simply shook their heads. Some smiled sadly. "He always helped everyone. I wish I knew where he was." As the sun began to set, Alicia parked beside the small diner. The elderly waitress recognized her immediately. "You were Marcus's girlfriend." Alicia lowered her head. "I don't deserve to be called that anymore." The waitress gently touched her shoulder. "What happened?" Tears rolled down Alicia's face. "I believed a lie," the waitress sighed. "I was afraid of that." She invited Alicia inside. After closing the restaurant, she sat across from Alicia and quietly began speaking. "The first time Marcus came here, he hadn't eaten in 2 days. I offered him a free meal. Do you know what he did?" Alicia shook her head. "He insisted on washing every plate in my kitchen before leaving. He said he didn't want charity. He wanted dignity." The waitress smiled through watery eyes. "Every Friday after that, he came back. Not to eat, but to help me close the restaurant. He cleaned tables, took out the trash, fixed broken chairs, and he refused every dollar I offered." Alicia covered her face. The guilt became unbearable. The waitress reached into a drawer. "I think this belongs to you." She placed a small velvet box on the table. Alicia slowly opened it. Inside was the engagement ring Marcus had planned to give her. The waitress nodded. "He left it here. He told me, maybe one day she'll learn the truth. If she does, give her this." Alicia burst into tears. She held the ring tightly against her chest. "I've made the biggest mistake of my life." Across town, Kevin's perfect world was beginning to crack. His chief financial officer rushed into his office. "We have a serious problem." Kevin barely looked up. "What now?" "3 major investors just pulled out." Kevin laughed. "They'll come back." The CFO didn't smile. "They won't. And that's not all. The Securities and Exchange Commission has opened an inquiry into several of our financial disclosures." Kevin's confidence faded. "What?" Another executive entered the room. "Our stock has dropped almost 30% since the market opened." Phones began ringing nonstop. News channels interrupted regular programming. Breaking news: Kevin Johnson's billion-dollar empire under federal investigation. Reporters gathered outside company headquarters. Shareholders demanded answers. Board members called emergency meetings. For the first time, Kevin felt something he hadn't experienced in years: fear. The following morning, His attorneys filled the conference room. One after another, they delivered bad news. Several lawsuits have been filed. A former executive has agreed to cooperate with investigators. Federal agents have requested company records. Kevin slammed his fist on the table. Fix it. His lead attorney looked him in the eyes. Sir, we can't fix evidence. The room fell silent. Kevin suddenly realized the empire he had spent years building was collapsing faster than it had risen. Meanwhile, Marcus sat alone on a park bench. His beard had grown. His clothes were worn. Yet, he still greeted strangers with kindness. An elderly man carrying groceries stumbled and fell. Without hesitation, Marcus rushed over. He helped the man to his feet, picked up every bag, walked him safely home. The old man smiled. Young man, you remind me of someone. Marcus laughed softly. My mother used to say the same thing. The old man looked at him carefully. What's your name? Marcus. The man's eyes widened. Marcus Johnson? Marcus looked surprised. Yes. The old man smiled. I've been looking for you. Marcus frowned. Looking for me? My name is Benjamin Carter. I was your mother's attorney. I've searched for you for nearly 6 years. Marcus's heart began to race. My mother's attorney? Benjamin nodded. Before she died, she left something in my care. She instructed me to give it to you only when you had lost everything. Marcus stared at him in complete disbelief. What could she possibly have left me? Benjamin smiled gently. Not here. Come with me. What I'm about to show you will change the rest of your life. Marcus followed Benjamin Carter in complete silence. His mind was racing. Nothing made sense. His mother had died years ago. They buried her with nothing. At least, that's what Marcus had always believed. Benjamin opened the passenger door of his car. Get in. Marcus hesitated. I'm sorry, sir. I don't have any money. Benjamin smiled warmly. I didn't come looking for your money. I came looking for you. Marcus slowly climbed inside. Nearly an hour later, the car stopped in front of an old brick building downtown. There was nothing luxurious about it. No expensive cars. No giant company logo. Just a simple bronze sign. Carter and Associates. Benjamin led Marcus inside. The receptionist smiled. Good afternoon, Mr. Carter. Benjamin nodded. Please don't disturb us. He opened a heavy wooden door. Stacks of legal files lined the walls. Family photographs covered a bookshelf. Benjamin walked to an old safe hidden behind a painting. He slowly turned the combination. Click. The steel door opened. He reached inside and removed a small wooden box. The box looked old, almost as old as Marcus's childhood memories. Benjamin carefully placed it on the desk. This has been waiting for you. Marcus stared at it. His hands trembled. What is it? Benjamin answered softly. It's your mother's final gift. Marcus slowly opened the box. Inside was a handwritten letter, a small silver key, several old documents, and a family photograph he had never seen before. It showed his mother standing beside an elderly black gentleman wearing a military uniform. Marcus frowned. I've never seen this picture. Benjamin smiled. That's because your mother never talked about him. That man was your grandfather. Marcus looked confused. My grandfather? Benjamin nodded. He served in the military for more than 30 years. When he passed away, he left a trust for your mother. Marcus's eyes widened. A trust? Benjamin leaned forward. Your mother never touched it. She believed the money should only be used if her sons ever faced true hardship. Marcus could hardly breathe. So, why didn't she use it when we were struggling? Benjamin's eyes became emotional. Because she wanted you boys to learn the value of hard work before the value of wealth. Benjamin slid the documents across the desk. Marcus read every page carefully. His heart pounded faster with each paragraph. The trust had grown over the years through conservative investments. It was now worth $12 million. Marcus immediately pushed the papers back. There has to be a mistake. Benjamin smiled. There isn't. Your mother left very specific instructions. He unfolded another letter, written in his mother's handwriting. Benjamin began reading aloud. My dear Marcus, if you're reading this, it means life has tested you beyond what any mother would ever want for her child. I know you. You would give away your last dollar before asking anyone for help. That's why I couldn't leave this to you immediately. You would have spent it on everyone except yourself. Marcus wiped tears from his face. Benjamin continued. If Kevin becomes the man I prayed he would become, share this blessing with him. But if success changes his heart, do not let guilt keep you from walking the path God has prepared for you. Marcus lowered his head and cried. It felt as though his mother was speaking directly to him. Benjamin gently placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. Your mother knew you better than anyone. Marcus looked up. I don't want revenge. Benjamin nodded. I know. That's exactly why she chose you. He pointed toward the final document. There is one more thing. Marcus picked it up. It wasn't a bank statement. It was the deed to a large commercial property in downtown Chicago. Benjamin smiled. Your grandfather purchased that building decades ago. It now houses several successful businesses. The rental income alone generates more than $100,000 every month. Marcus sat speechless. A man who had slept on park benches just days earlier now owned assets worth millions. Benjamin looked him in the eyes. So, what do you want to do now? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He thought about Kevin. He thought about Alicia. He thought about the waitress who fed him when he was starving. He thought about every stranger who had shown him kindness when he had nothing. Finally, he smiled. The first thing I want to do is help the people who helped me. Benjamin smiled proudly. At that very moment, across the city, federal agents were walking into Kevin Johnson's corporate headquarters with search warrants. Neither brother knew it yet, but their lives were about to cross again. Only this time, everything would be different. Federal agents entered the lobby just after 9 in the morning. Employees froze. Conversations stopped. The sound of polished shoes echoed through the marble floor. One agent stepped toward the front desk. We have a federal search warrant. Within minutes, the entire building was locked down. Computers were seized. Boxes of financial records were carried out. Executives were escorted into conference rooms for questioning. Outside, television cameras captured everything live. Breaking news flashed across every major network. Billionaire CEO Kevin Johnson. Under federal investigation. Investors panicked. The company's stock plunged another 40% before noon. Billions of dollars disappeared in a single day. Kevin watched everything unfold from his office. His hands trembled. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Board members demanded answers. Bankers demanded repayment. Lawyers demanded honesty. For the first time in years, Kevin had no control. His assistant walked in quietly. Sir, the board has voted. Kevin looked up. They're removing you as CEO. The words hit harder than any punch. This is my company. The assistant lowered her head. It was. Security entered moments later. One of the guards spoke respectfully. Mr. Johnson, we've been instructed to escort you out. Kevin looked around the office. The custom furniture, the awards, the photographs, everything he had spent years building. Everything he believed made him important. It was all slipping away. He picked up a single framed picture. It was the old photograph Marcus had handed him at the wedding. 2 little boys, one smiling mother. He stared at it for several seconds, then quietly walked away. Across the city, Marcus's life was moving in a completely different direction. Benjamin introduced him to financial advisors, property managers, accountants. They explained every investment his grandfather had left behind. Marcus listened carefully. He asked questions. He took notes. Unlike Kevin, he refused to sign anything he didn't fully understand. One advisor smiled. Most people who inherit wealth spend the first day buying expensive cars. Marcus smiled back. My mother didn't raise me that way. His first stop wasn't a luxury dealership. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't a jewelry store. Instead, Marcus drove to the small diner. The elderly waitress was wiping tables when the door opened. She looked up. For a moment, she didn't recognize him. Marcus was wearing clean clothes. His beard had been trimmed. He looked healthier, but the smile was exactly the same. Marcus? He walked over and hugged her. You fed me when I had nothing. She smiled. I only gave you a meal. Marcus shook his head. You gave me hope. He handed her an envelope. I'd like you to open this. She slowly unfolded the papers. Her eyes widened. What is this? Marcus smiled. The deed to this building? She looked confused. I don't understand. You've rented this diner for 32 years. You'll never pay rent again. The waitress burst into tears. No, I can't accept this. Marcus gently held her hands. My mother taught me that kindness always comes back. Please, let me thank you. She hugged him tightly. For several moments, neither of them spoke. The next day, Marcus visited the public library. Children were reading at small tables. The librarian looked up. "Marcus?" She rushed over and embraced him. "I've been praying for you." Marcus smiled. "I know. You never stopped believing in me." He handed her another envelope. She opened it. Inside was a certified check for $2 million. She gasped. "What is this for?" Marcus looked around the room. "No child should ever stop dreaming because they can't afford books. I want every child who walks through these doors to have that chance." The librarian couldn't hold back her tears. News of Marcus's generosity quickly spread through the community. People began asking, "Who is Marcus Johnson?" The man nobody noticed was becoming the man everyone admired. Meanwhile, Kevin returned to his mansion. The gates were locked. Bank officials stood outside waiting. One handed him a folder. "Mr. Johnson, the property has been repossessed." He stared in disbelief. "My own house?" The official nodded. "You personally guaranteed several loans. The bank has exercised its rights." Kevin slowly looked up at the mansion. Only yesterday, he believed it would always be his. Now, it belonged to the bank. As he carried a single suitcase toward the sidewalk, a familiar feeling washed over him. For the first time, he understood exactly how Marcus had felt. Only now, there was no one waiting to catch him. And somewhere across the city, Marcus was about to make a decision that would leave the entire country speechless. Kevin stood on the sidewalk with a single suitcase. The gates behind him slowly closed. The mansion that once symbolized his success was no longer his. Luxury cars were towed away one by one. Bank officials inventoried everything. Even the artwork hanging on the walls had been seized. Neighbors peeked through their windows. Reporters gathered across the street. The same cameras that once celebrated Kevin now recorded his downfall. One reporter shouted, "Mr. Johnson, do you have any comments about the fraud investigation?" Kevin kept walking. For the first time in years, he had nothing to say. Days later, the court ordered Kevin to surrender nearly every remaining asset. His accounts were frozen. His companies filed for bankruptcy protection. Business partners disappeared overnight. Friends stopped answering his calls. The celebrities who once fought to be seen with him pretended they had never met him. Kevin finally understood a painful truth. Many people had loved his money, not him. Unable to afford a hotel, Kevin checked into a small homeless shelter. He stood quietly in line, waiting for a bed. No designer suit, no bodyguards, no private chef, just a thin blanket and a metal bunk. As he looked around, he noticed people smiling despite having almost nothing. Some shared food. Others offered blankets to strangers. It reminded him of someone, Marcus, the brother he had called weak, the brother whose kindness he had mocked. Kevin lowered his head in shame. Across the city, Marcus's life had become busier than ever. He refused to live like a billionaire. Instead of buying a mansion, he purchased a modest home in the same neighborhood where he and Kevin had grown up. Instead of hiring dozens of servants, he hired people who had struggled to find work, former veterans, single parents, men and women rebuilding their lives. He paid them fair wages. He treated every employee with dignity. Every Friday, he walked through the offices, shaking hands with everyone, learning their names, asking about their families. The employees couldn't believe it. Most had never met an owner who cared. One afternoon, Benjamin walked into Marcus's office carrying a newspaper. He placed it on the desk. The front page headline read, "Former billionaire Kevin Johnson declared bankrupt." Marcus stared at the article. He remained silent for a long time. Benjamin finally asked, "What are you thinking?" Marcus sighed. "I don't hate him." Benjamin nodded. "I know." Marcus looked out the window. "He's still my little brother." Benjamin studied Marcus carefully. "You know, if you want revenge, this is the perfect moment." Marcus slowly shook his head. "My mother didn't raise me to celebrate someone's downfall." Benjamin smiled. "I had a feeling you'd say that." The following morning, Marcus quietly drove to the homeless shelter. He didn't tell anyone. No cameras, no reporters, no publicity. He simply wanted to see his brother. The shelter director led him inside. "There he is." Marcus looked across the room. Kevin sat alone on the edge of a bunk bed. His clothes were wrinkled. His shoulders were slumped. He looked older, much older. Marcus slowly walked toward him. Kevin looked up. For a second, he couldn't believe his eyes. Kevin immediately stood. His lips trembled. "I don't deserve for you to be here." Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he wrapped his arms around Kevin. Kevin broke down. The man who had once stood on magazine covers now cried like the frightened little boy he used to be. Over and over, he repeated the same words. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was selfish. I betrayed you. I betrayed Mom." Marcus held him tightly. "I know." Kevin wiped his tears. "I don't expect you to forgive me." Marcus looked him in the eyes. "I forgave you a long time ago." Kevin stared at him in disbelief. "What?" Marcus smiled. "The day I stopped carrying hatred was the day I became free." Kevin fell to his knees. "I don't deserve a brother like you." Marcus gently helped him back to his feet. "No, but you're still my brother." Just then, Marcus handed Kevin a small envelope. Kevin looked confused. "What is this?" Marcus smiled. "It's not money. It's something far more valuable." Kevin slowly opened it. Inside was an application for the Marcus Johnson Foundation, a foundation dedicated to helping struggling young people attend college. Attached to it was a handwritten note. It read, "If you truly want to honor Mom, start by serving others the way she taught us." Kevin read the note through tears. At that moment, he realized the greatest gift Marcus had ever given him wasn't an education. It was a second chance. And this time, Kevin was determined not to waste it. Kevin stared at the application for several minutes. His hands refused to let it go. For years, he had believed success was measured by the size of a bank account. Now, standing inside a homeless shelter, he realized success had nothing to do with money. It had everything to do with character. He looked up at Marcus. "You still believe in me?" Marcus smiled. "I believe people can change, but only if they choose to." Kevin nodded slowly. "I want to change." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then don't tell me. Show me." The very next morning, Kevin arrived at the Marcus Johnson Foundation, not through the front entrance, but through the employee entrance. There were no cameras, no interviews, no special treatment. The receptionist looked at him with surprise. "Mr. Johnson?" Kevin shook his head. "Just Kevin. I'm here to volunteer." Marcus had only one condition. "If you're going to work here, you'll start where everyone else starts." Kevin smiled. "I understand." His first assignment shocked him. Cleaning the building, sweeping floors, taking out trash, scrubbing bathrooms. Some of the younger volunteers whispered, "Isn't that the billionaire?" "I think that's him." Kevin heard every word. But this time, he didn't care. Every floor he cleaned reminded him of Marcus working 3 jobs. Every trash bag he carried reminded him of the burdens his brother had carried alone. For the first time in decades, Kevin earned his place through humility. Weeks turned into months. Kevin never missed a day. He served meals at homeless shelters, read books to children at the public library, helped elderly neighbors repair their homes, loaded food boxes into struggling families' cars. He refused to tell anyone who he used to be. When people thanked him, he simply smiled and replied, "I'm just trying to become a better man." Word began to spread throughout Chicago. People noticed a quiet volunteer who never asked for recognition. They didn't know he had once been one of America's richest men. One afternoon, Marcus called Kevin into his office. "I have something to show you." Kevin walked in nervously. Marcus handed him a newspaper. The headline read, "Former Billionaire's Honest Transformation Inspires Thousands." Kevin looked confused. "I never spoke to any reporters?" Marcus smiled. "You didn't have to. The people you've helped told your story." Kevin lowered his head. "I don't deserve the attention." Marcus nodded. "That's exactly why you've changed." A few days later, Marcus organized a scholarship ceremony. Hundreds of students filled the auditorium. Many came from neighborhoods just like the one where Marcus and Kevin had grown up. Some had lost parents. Others worked 2 jobs while attending school. Marcus stepped onto the stage. The room erupted in applause. He raised his hand for silence. "I didn't build this foundation alone." Everyone looked confused. Marcus turned toward the side of the stage. "Kevin, come join me." Kevin froze. He shook his head. "No." Marcus smiled. "Come." Slowly, Kevin walked onto the stage. The audience whispered. Many recognized him. Marcus looked at the crowd. This man made terrible mistakes. Kevin lowered his head. Marcus continued. So did I. I made the mistake of believing that love always expects something in return. But forgiveness taught me something. If we never give people a chance to change, then we leave no room for redemption. Marcus turned to Kevin. Tell them the truth. Kevin stepped to the microphone. His voice trembled. My name is Kevin Johnson. For years, I told the world I was self-made. I lied. The man standing beside me gave up his education, worked 3 jobs, sold our childhood home, so I could have a future. I repaid him with betrayal. Tears filled the auditorium. Kevin continued, I can never erase what I did, but I can spend the rest of my life honoring the brother I failed. The audience rose to its feet, not because Kevin had once been rich, but because telling the truth took more courage than hiding behind wealth. After the ceremony, Marcus and Kevin drove to a quiet cemetery. They stood before their mother's grave. Neither spoke for several minutes. Kevin knelt down. Tears rolled onto the grass. I'm sorry, Mom. I became the man you prayed I would never become. Marcus placed fresh flowers beside the headstone. Then he quietly said, But today, you became the man she never stopped believing you could be. The 2 brothers embraced. The wind gently rustled through the trees. It felt almost as if their mother was smiling. Months later, the Marcus Johnson Foundation had helped thousands of young people attend college. Every student who received a scholarship heard the same story. Not about money, not about success, but about sacrifice, about forgiveness, about a brother who gave away everything and still found the strength to love. The final words of the narrator echoed as the screen slowly faded to black. Wealth can build houses, but only love can build a home. Betrayal may break a family, but forgiveness has the power to restore one. Never forget the people who carried you when you couldn't walk, because one day they may be the only ones still standing beside you. The end.